The trial of the Varth commander lasted 3 months. Every species in the galaxy watched as human. Prosecutors presented their evidence. Not just the recordings from Kepler Station, though those were terrible enough. They showed 30 years of documented abuse. Thousands of reports from human workers who had been cheated, insulted, threatened, and worse. Records of other primitive species who had suffered similar treatment. Proof that the Council's own laws had been broken again and again by the powerful against the weak. The commander sat in the defendant's chair, his scales dull with fear. He had expected the humans to simply kill him. That was what civilized species did when they won wars. Instead, they had put him on trial under the laws his own council had created, laws that had never been enforced against anyone powerful. Laws that were written to look fair while allowing the strong to do whatever they wanted. Now those words were being used exactly as they were written, and the commander discovered that justice was much less comfortable when it applied to you. The verdict came on a cold morning in Centrum's rebuilt council chamber. Human soldiers stood guard at every door, but they were not there to threaten anyone. They were there to make sure the process was fair. Guilty. The commander was guilty of murder, of abuse of power, of violating the rights guaranteed to all sentient beings under council law. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, watching recordings of the people he had killed, forced to learn their names and their stories and understand that they had been real. Some thought the punishment was too mild. Others thought it was crueler than simple execution. The humans did not explain their reasoning. They simply ensured that justice was done. 1 year after the trial ended, the Galactic Council voted to dissolve itself, but it was not a quick decision. There were months of arguments, debates, and negotiations. Some species wanted to fight the humans, even though they knew they would lose. Others wanted to surrender completely and let humanity rule the galaxy. Neither extreme won. Instead, something new was created. A coalition based on principles that humanity had learned through centuries of painful experience. Every species would have equal voice. No tribute would be demanded from the weak by the strong. Laws would apply to everyone equally, enforced by courts that no one could corrupt. Ambassador Laura Bennett watched the signing ceremony from her home in Vermont. She was 88 now, too frail to travel, but they had set up screens so she could see everything. Tears ran down her wrinkled face as representatives from 47 species, plus humanity, put their marks on the new agreement. Kevin Moore stood beside her, holding her hand. He had refused to attend the ceremony in person. He said it was not his place. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. The future should be built by people who knew how to build things, not people who knew how to destroy them. "We did it," Laura whispered. "After all these years. We actually did it." Kevin nodded slowly. "You did it. You made the choice, 30 years ago, to be patient, to let them underestimate us, to wait for the right moment. Everything that came after was possible because of that choice. I had nightmares for years about all the people who suffered while we were waiting, all the insults we swallowed, all the times I wanted to fight back and didn't. I know. I had the same nightmares." They sat in silence, watching history happen on the screens. Before them, Dr. Maria Santos was appointed to lead the new coalition's technology sharing program. The weapons she had spent decades developing were dismantled. Instead, she focused on building things that would help everyone. Medical technology that could cure diseases across 100 worlds. Energy systems that could power civilizations without destroying planets. Communication networks that let species understand each other better than ever before. She often thought about the underground facility beneath the Nevada desert. It was a museum now. School children came to see where humanity had built its secret power. They learned about the patience and the planning and the long years of preparation. "Our greatest weapon was never any device I built," Maria told a group of young scientists from a dozen worlds at a conference on Centrum. It was our ability to think beyond the present moment, to suffer today for the sake of a better tomorrow. That is what the Council never understood about us. They thought we were primitive because our technology was simple. But technology was never the measure of a species. Character is. Commander Daniel Hayes retired from space and opened an academy for young officers from across the coalition. He taught navigation, tactics, diplomacy, and history. But his most important lesson was always the same. Contempt is a choice, he told each graduating class. Every time you meet someone different from yourself, you can choose to look down on them or to see them as equals. The old council chose contempt for thousands of years. They called it wisdom. They called it the natural order. They were wrong. We chose differently. And because of that choice, the galaxy is better today than it was yesterday. Admiral Kevin Moore died peacefully at the age of 97. In his small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, his memoir, written in the last years of his life, became required reading in schools across 36 worlds. The book was called The Value of Silence. It told the story of 30 years of patience, of building strength while appearing weak, of enduring contempt while preparing for justice. It was not a comfortable book. Kevin did not pretend that everything humanity had done was right. He wrote honestly about the hard choices, the moral compromises, the times when patience felt like cowardice. But the last line of the book, written just months before his death, became a kind of motto for humanity's role in the new galaxy. Earth stayed silent not because we had nothing to say, but because some lessons are best taught through actions. And some actions require a very long patience. The monument to Kepler Station stood in the center of Centrum's great plaza. 300 names carved in stone, surrounded by flowers from 100 different worlds. People of every species came to leave offerings, to remember what contempt could cost, to promise that such things would never happen again. Betty Cooper's name was there. The old woman who had watched Earth's distant sun while her air ran out. Her grandchildren had survived on another station. They visited the monument every year with their own children, teaching them about patience and justice and the price of prejudice. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors or servants, but as equals. Not through violence alone, but through the harder work of showing that a better way was possible. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and Earth, at last, was no longer silent. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Floating platforms held ambassadors from 12,000 different species. Some were tall and covered in scales. Others were made of pure light. A few were so strange that human eyes could not fully understand their shapes. All of them had gathered for one purpose: to judge humanity. Ambassador Laura Simmons stood alone on the human platform. She was a woman of 53 years with gray streaks in her brown hair. Her face showed no fear. Her hands did not shake. She had known this day would come for a very long time. The High Arbiter floated to the center of the chamber. His name was Vethkai, and he was a being made entirely of living crystal. When he spoke, his voice rang through every translation device in the room. "The Galactic Council has reached its decision," Vethkai announced. The species known as humanity is found guilty of 17 violations of trade law. They have stolen protected technology. They have spread their influence to worlds where they were not welcome. They have refused to let us inspect their warships. Lavra listened without expression. Around her, thousands of alien eyes watched and waited. "The punishment is permanent exile," Vethkai continued. "Earth and all human colonies are banned from galactic space. All trade is ended. All treaties are canceled. Humanity has 30 days to leave Union territory forever." A wave of satisfaction passed through the chamber. The Cathari delegation, tall insects with sharp mandibles, clicked their approval. The crystalline concordat pulsed with pleased light. Even the usually neutral species seemed relieved. The troublesome humans would finally be gone. Everyone waited for Laura to beg. Every species that had been banned before had begged. They had cried and pleaded and promised to change. It was expected that Lara simply nodded. "We accept." The chamber went silent. Bethkai's crystal body flickered with confusion. "You accept? Do you understand what this means? You will be alone. Your economy will die. Your species will fade into nothing." "Perhaps," Lara said. She began gathering her documents from the podium. "Or perhaps we will find another way. We usually do." Ambassador Zifkal of the Cathari hegemony leaned forward on his platform. He was one of the species who had pushed hardest for humanity's exile. "You are fools," he said. "Without our technology, you will return to the Stone Age. Without our medicine, your people will die of diseases we cured centuries ago. You need us." Lara looked up at him. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. It might have been anger. It might have been amusement. "Thank you for your concern, Ambassador. But humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the death of our own sun's stability. I think we will manage." She turned and walked toward the exit. Every step echoed in the silent chamber. "Wait," called a softer voice. It belonged to Harmonious Chord, the Veluxi ambassador. The Veluxi were gentle beings with 6 limbs and sensory fronds that could detect emotions. She had always been kind to the human delegation. "Lara, please. This does not have to end this way. I can speak to the council." "Perhaps if you apologized." Lara stopped. She turned back and looked at her friend with genuine warmth. "Cord, you have been a true friend to humanity. I will not forget that. But we will not apologize for being what we are." She paused. "Take care of yourself. The galaxy may change more than you expect." Then she was gone. High above the council world, Captain Daniel Hayes waited on the bridge of the starship, Horizon's Edge. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and calm gray eyes. He had served in Earth's space fleet for 30 years. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything quite like what was happening now. His communication officer looked up from her console. "Sir, Ambassador Simmons is aboard. She says to begin Operation Homecoming." Daniel nodded slowly. He had heard rumors about Operation Homecoming for years. Secret files, classified projects, whispered conversations that stopped when he entered the room. Now, it seemed, he would finally learn the truth. "Send the signal to all human vessels," he ordered. "Tell them to begin withdrawal procedures. And contact Earth. Let them know it's time." Across the galaxy, the message spread at faster than light speed. On 100 worlds, humans received the order. And something remarkable happened. There was no panic. There was no confusion. Colonists on distant planets simply nodded and began packing. Traders closed their shops with calm efficiency. Scientists downloaded their final research files and wiped their computers clean. It was as if they had been rehearsing for this moment their entire lives. On Earth, in a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Patricia Cole watched everything unfold on a wall of glowing screens. She was an older woman with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. Beside her stood a young officer named Kevin Park. 30 days to clear out, Kevin said quietly. "They really think they're punishing us." Patricia smiled. It was not a warm smile. "They have no idea what they have done." She pulled up a file on her personal screen. The words at the top read, "Project Prometheus Classification, Beyond Top Secret." Kevin caught a glimpse of technical diagrams that made no sense to him. Energy readings that seemed impossible. Ship designs that looked nothing like anything humanity had ever built publicly. "What is that?" he asked. "That is 40 years of work," Patricia replied. 40 years of pretending to be the galaxy's foolish newcomers. 40 years of letting them think we were stealing their technology, when really we were building something far beyond it. Kevin stared at her. "We were pretending? All this time?" "Not pretending, exactly. More like playing a role. Patricia closed the file. The galaxy expected humans to be clever but chaotic, ambitious but undisciplined. So that is what we showed them. We let them feel superior. We let them underestimate us. And while they were busy being annoyed by our behavior, we were learning, growing, preparing for what? Patricia looked at the screens, showing human ships departing from alien space stations, human colonists boarding transports, human flags being lowered on distant worlds, preparing for the day they told us to leave. She turned to face him fully. The Galactic Union thinks they have defeated humanity today. They think they have put us in our place. But the truth is, we have been waiting for this moment. We needed their permission to stop pretending. Kevin felt a chill run down his spine. What are we really capable of? Patricia's smile grew wider. You will see soon enough. Everyone will. On the horizon's edge, Laura Simmons entered the bridge. Captain Daniel Hayes turned to greet her. Orders, Ambassador? Laura looked out at the stars through the main viewport. Somewhere out there, 12,000 species were celebrating humanity's defeat. They had no idea what was coming. Take us home, Captain, she said. We have work to do. The ship turned toward Earth, and the long journey began. The 30 days of withdrawal began, and the galaxy watched with satisfaction. Surely now the humans would show their true desperation. Surely now they would understand their mistake. But day after day, the reports confused everyone who read them. The humans were not panicking. They were not begging. They were simply leaving quietly and efficiently, as if they had planned this moment down to the smallest detail. On the agricultural world called Verdun 7, a farmer named Nathan Brooks loaded the last of his grain onto a human transport ship. He had lived on this planet for 20 years. He had built his farm from nothing. He had raised 3 children here. Now he was leaving it all behind. His neighbor, a Cathari female named Chidixa, watched him work. She had known Nathan for 15 years. She had bought his grain every harvest season. She had thought she understood humans. Now she was not so sure. I do not understand, Chidixa said, her mandibles clicking softly. You are losing everything. Your home, your land, your life's work. Why do you not seem upset? Nathan wiped sweat from his face and smiled at her. Who says I'm not upset? I love this place. But love doesn't mean you can't let go when it's time. But where will you go? What will you do? Without the union's trade networks, your people will starve. Maybe. Or maybe we'll figure something out. We've been farming for 10,000 years, long before we ever met any aliens. He lifted another crate onto the transport. My grandfather used to say that humans are like weeds. You can cut us down, poison us, burn us out. But somehow we always grow back. Chidixa did not know what weeds were, but she understood the meaning. You are not afraid. Afraid? Sure, a little. But mostly I'm curious. Nathan stopped working and looked up at the sky. I've spent 20 years being told what humans can and cannot do, what we're allowed to build, where we're allowed to go, how we're supposed to behave. Now all those rules are gone. He grinned. I want to see what we do next. He offered his hand to her. It was a human gesture of friendship. Chidixa had learned it years ago. She reached out with her own limb and touched his palm gently. I will miss you, Nathan Brooks, she said. I'll miss you too, Chidixa. Take care of yourself. And hey, maybe someday things will be different. Maybe someday we'll meet again. She watched him board the transport and fly away into the sky. She would never see him again. But she would remember this conversation for the rest of her life. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 1,000 worlds. Humans said goodbye to alien friends and colleagues. They packed their belongings. They shut down their businesses. And through it all, they smiled. They laughed. They acted as if they were going on vacation rather than facing extinction. It drove the Union observers crazy. On the space station above the Council world, an intelligence officer named Maya Torres was conducting a different kind of withdrawal. Her official job was as a cultural attaché, helping alien visitors understand human customs. Her real job was something else entirely. For 20 years, Maya had been a spy. She had gathered information on every major government in the galaxy. She had recruited informants in the highest levels of alien society. She had learned secrets that could have started wars or ended them. Now she was carefully destroying every trace of her work. Her secure communication device buzzed. A man's face appeared on the screen. She knew him only as Frank. He was her handler, the only person who knew her true identity. "Status report," Frank said. "All assets are evacuating safely. No compromises. No discoveries." Maya fed another data chip into the destroyer. They never knew we were here. 20 years of intelligence gathering, and they never suspected a thing. Frank sounded almost disappointed. "I thought at least one of them would figure it out." "They couldn't see what they weren't looking for," Maya replied. The Union believed humans were too disorganized to run proper spy networks. Too emotional. Too undisciplined. So they looked for threats that matched their expectations and missed the ones that didn't. The perfect cover. The perfect cover, she agreed. We could have used this intelligence to destroy them, you know. We had enough information to collapse their economy, expose their leaders, turn their allies against each other. But that was never the plan. No, the plan was always to watch, to learn, to be ready. Maya destroyed the last chip and began wiping her computer. The funny thing is, they think they're punishing us. They think exile is the worst thing they can do to humanity. They don't realize they're giving us exactly what we wanted. And what's that? Freedom. Maya smiled. Freedom to stop pretending. Freedom to show the galaxy what we really are. On the 25th day, the last human military vessels gathered at the border of Union space. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the fleet assemble on his view screen. 50 ships, officially. Humanity's entire navy, according to Union records. But Daniel had started to notice things. Ships that seemed larger than their specifications allowed. Energy readings that didn't match their listed power plants. Small details that suggested the horizon's edge, and her sister ships were not quite what they appeared to be. He had asked Ambassador Laura Simmons about it once. She had smiled and told him not to worry. Soon, she said, everything would make sense. On the 29th day, the last human transport crossed the border. The horizon's edge lingered for a moment, sensors recording the stars that humanity had called home for 40 years. Lavra stood beside Daniel on the observation deck. "Any regrets?" he asked. She thought about it carefully. "A few. There were good people out there. Good species who treated us with kindness. The Veluxi, the gardeners of Hyacinth, the quantum mines of Sector 7. They didn't deserve to be abandoned. And the others?" Laura's expression hardened. "The Cathari, the crystalline concordat, the species who pushed for our exile because we made them uncomfortable, because we didn't fit their idea of what a proper civilization should look like." She paused. "They will learn that some decisions have consequences." That sounds almost like a threat. Not a threat. A prediction. Lavra turned away from the viewport. "Send the final message, Captain. Then take us home." Daniel nodded and gave the order. A simple transmission went out on all frequencies. "Thank you for 40 years of education. We wish you prosperity in the challenges ahead." Signed, the people of Earth. The Union delegates who received it found the message strange. Some called it gracious. Others called it cryptic. A few, the more thoughtful ones, called it ominous. As the horizon's edge crossed into human space, something changed. The familiar hum of the engines shifted to a deeper, more powerful tone. Lights flickered and stabilized at a brighter setting. The ship seemed to wake up, as if it had been sleeping for a very long time. Daniel stared at his console in disbelief. What just happened? Lara smiled. We stopped pretending, Captain. Welcome to the real Horizon's Edge. The real? Daniel looked around his bridge. Everything seemed the same, yet somehow different. More advanced. More capable. How long has this ship been hiding its true capabilities? Since the day it was built. Since the day we joined the Galactic Union. Lara put a hand on his shoulder. I know you have questions. Everyone does. But trust me when I say that the answers are coming. And when you see what we've really been building, you'll understand why the silence was necessary. The ship accelerated toward Earth. Faster than any Union vessel could match. Behind them, the galaxy believed it had one dot. They had no idea how wrong they were. 5 years passed, and the galaxy tried to forget about humanity. Not at first. The Union celebrated. Speeches were given about the triumph of galactic civilization over chaos. Awards were handed out to the diplomats who had pushed for human exile. The Cathari hegemony declared a national holiday. Everything was perfect. Then the silence began. It started slowly. Scientists noticed that no signals were coming from human space. No radio waves. No faster-than-light communications. No energy signatures at all. The entire region had gone completely dark. At first, no one worried. The humans were probably too busy surviving to maintain their communication networks. Their technology had always been inferior. Without Union support, they had likely fallen back to primitive methods. But as months turned into years, the silence became disturbing. 3 survey ships were sent to investigate. The first reported strange sensor readings near the border and then vanished. The second made it further before disappearing without a trace. The third turned back after its navigation systems failed completely. In the council chambers, the mystery of humanity became an obsession. They cannot have simply disappeared, High Arbiter Vethkai argued during an emergency session. 8 billion individuals do not vanish without a trace. There must be an explanation. Perhaps they destroyed themselves, suggested Ambassador Zithkal. He had been promoted to leader of the Cathari delegation after the exile. Their society was unstable. Civil war was always likely. They'd probably fought among themselves until nothing remained. Then where are the debris fields? Asked another delegate. Where are the distress signals? Where are the refugees? No one had an answer. Harmonious Cord, the Veluxi ambassador, sat quietly in her corner of the chamber. She had not spoken much since the exile. She had lost friends that day. Good friends who had treated her with kindness. Now she listened to her colleagues argue about what had happened to humanity. And she felt something cold growing in her hearts. You are all missing the obvious answer, she finally said. The chamber fell quiet. Harmonious Cord rarely spoke, but when she did, people listened. The humans chose to disappear. They chose to go silent. They are hiding from us deliberately. Zithkal clicked his mandibles in dismissal. Why would they hide? They have nothing. No resources. No technology. No hope. Do they not? Harmonious Cord's sensory fronds rippled with an emotion the translators could not identify. I knew humans for 40 years. I studied their history. I learned their stories. And the one thing I learned above all else is that humans are never more dangerous than when you think you have defeated them. You give them too much credit, Zithkal said. They were clever, I admit. But cleverness is not enough to survive without our help. Perhaps. Harmonious Cord settled back in her seat. Or perhaps we will learn that we understood nothing about them at all. Far from the council chambers, on the frontier of Union space, Captain Kyle Morton of the patrol vessel, Vigilant Observer, was about to discover the truth. Kyle was a young Cathari officer with too much curiosity and too little caution. His superiors had sent him to investigate gravitational anomalies near the human quarantine zone. It was supposed to be a routine mission. Log the readings, file a report. Return home. Kyle had other ideas. Take us closer to the border, he ordered his pilot. Sir, our orders are to maintain safe distance. Our orders are to investigate. We cannot investigate from here. Kyle leaned forward in his command chair. Take us closer. I want to see what is causing these readings. The vigilant observer crossed into the restricted zone. At first, nothing happened. The sensors showed empty space, dead stars, the usual debris of the galaxy's edge. Then, without warning, everything changed. The view screen flickered. Static raced across every display. Navigation systems spun wildly, unable to find any reference points. The ship shuddered as if caught in an invisible current. What is happening? Kyle demanded. Unknown, sir. Our sensors are detecting. I do not understand these readings. They should not be possible. Show me. The image on the view screen cleared, and Kyle Morton's world changed forever. Before them hung a structure so vast that his mind struggled to comprehend it. A ring of metal and energy, thousands of kilometers across, wrapped around a captured star. The star itself burned with a strange, controlled intensity, its power being harvested and channeled into systems beyond anything Kyle had ever imagined. Around the ring floated hundreds of ships. They were sleek and powerful, designs that bore no resemblance to the clumsy human vessels Kyle had seen in historical records. These were warships. Advanced warships. Ships that made the vigilant observer look like a toy. Impossible, Kyle whispered. This is impossible. They could not have built this. They did not have the technology. They did not have the resources. They did not have the time. A communication signal cut through the static. A human face appeared on the screen. She was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes, wearing a uniform Kyle did not recognize. Captain Morton, she said pleasantly. My name is Dr. Lisa Palmer. I am the director of the Prometheus Research Station. You have entered restricted space. Kyle struggled to find his voice. What? What is this place? What have you done? We have been busy. Dr. Palmer smiled. It was a patient smile, the kind a teacher might give to a slow student. You see, Captain, when the Galactic Union banned humanity, they believed they were condemning us to poverty and death. They thought we needed their technology to survive. They were wrong. This is not possible, Kyle repeated. You could not have advanced this far in 5 years. We did not advance this far in 5 years, Dr. Palmer corrected. We advanced this far in 40 years. We simply hid it from you until now. Kyle felt his exoskeleton crack with stress. 40 years. 40 years of playing the role of inferior newcomers. 40 years of pretending to steal technology they had already surpassed. 40 years of waiting. Why? He managed to ask. Why hide? Why pretend? Because the galaxy was not ready to see what humanity could become. And truthfully, we needed time to prepare for the day when you would reject us. Dr. Palmer gestured at the vast structure behind her. The Prometheus array generates more power than your entire civilization combined. We have achieved things your scientists will not independently discover for another 50,000 years. And this is only the beginning. What do you want? Revenge? War? Neither. For the first time, Dr. Palmer's expression softened. We want to leave, Captain. Humanity has outgrown this galaxy. We are going somewhere new. Somewhere we can build without limits. Somewhere we do not have to pretend to be less than we are. Kyle stared at her. You are leaving the galaxy? We are already leaving. The first colony ships departed weeks ago. By the time your superiors receive your report, millions of humans will be on their way to Andromeda. Andromeda is 3 million light years away. The journey would take forever. Dr. Palmer laughed softly. For you, perhaps. For us, it will take about 3 months. She leaned forward slightly, her expression serious. Go home, Captain Morton. Tell your masters what you have seen. Tell them that humanity bears no grudge against the species who exiled us. We could have used our technology to conquer you. We chose not to. We are simply moving on to greater things. The communication ended. The vigilant observer's systems returned to normal. The vast structure before them shimmered and faded from sight. Hidden once again behind whatever technology the humans had developed, Kyle sat in his command chair for a long time. Staring at empty space dot, Benny gave the order to return home that the galaxy needed to know what humanity had become. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in 10,000 years. Every species sent representatives. Every ambassador demanded answers. The great chamber that had once celebrated humanity's exile now buzzed with fear and confusion. High Arbiter Vethkai called for order, but his crystalline voice could barely be heard over the chaos. Finally, he activated the emergency override, flooding the chamber with a tone that forced silence from every translation device. "We have confirmed Captain Morton's report," Vethkai announced. His body pulsed with stress patterns that everyone could recognize. The humans have constructed a stellar engineering project at the edge of their space. Our scientists believe it is a complete energy capture array around a living star. A Dyson ring, clarified the Veluxy scientific attach, her voice filled with awe despite the situation. A technology we believed was purely theoretical. We estimated it would require the combined effort of the entire galaxy and thousands of years to achieve. The humans achieved it in 5 years, someone said. No, Harmonious Chord corrected quietly. The humans achieved it in 40 years. They simply hid it from us. The silence that followed was absolute. 12,000 species, representing trillions of individuals, sat speechless as the truth sank in. Ambassador Zithkal was the first to recover. His voice was sharp with anger and fear. "This is an act of war. They have been building weapons in secret. They plan to attack us." "Do they?" Harmonious Chord asked. "Then, why did they let Captain Morton leave alive? Why did they show him their capabilities? Why not simply destroy his ship and keep their secrets? Because they want us to be afraid. Or because they want us to understand." Harmonious Chord stood, her 6 limbs unfolding to their full height. "I have listened to this council debate humanity for 40 years. I have heard them called primitive, chaotic, dangerous, uncivilized. I have heard species mock their technology, their culture, their very way of thinking. And now we learn that all along, they were more advanced than all of us combined." Her sensory fronds rippled with something between anger and admiration. "They played us for fools. And we played along perfectly." Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered to life. A human face appeared, familiar to many who had attended the exile proceedings 5 years ago. Ambassador Laura Simmons looked older now, with more gray in her hair. But her eyes held the same calm certainty they had always held. "Members of the Galactic Union," she began, "I apologize for this interruption. But I believe we need to talk." Vethkai surged forward. "This is a violation of quarantine. You have no right to broadcast into Union space." "You are correct," Lavra agreed. "And yet, here I am. Perhaps that tells you something about the effectiveness of your quarantine." The chamber fell silent again. 40 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Union as newcomers and students. We learned your languages. We studied your technologies. We observed your politics and your cultures. And we let you believe that we were struggling to keep up. Lavra paused, letting her words sink in. We were not struggling. We were studying. We were learning what kind of galaxy we had entered. And we were preparing for the day when that galaxy would reject us. Why the deception? Demanded a crystalline Concordat delegate. Why pretend to be less than you were? Because we needed to understand you before we revealed ourselves. And because we knew that advanced technology in the hands of a species you did not trust would terrify you. Laura's expression remained calm. We were right. Even now, knowing what we are capable of, your first assumption is that we want to destroy you. That tells us everything we need to know about whether we made the right choice. What do you want? Zithkal demanded. Power? Territory? Submission? We want nothing from you. Humanity is leaving this galaxy. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had not yet exploded. Leaving? Vethkai's crystal form flickered with disbelief. Where would you go? Andromeda, Triangulum. Eventually, galaxies that do not yet have names. Larva gestured, and the image behind her shifted to show a fleet of enormous vessels, unlike anything the Union had ever seen. Our first colony ships are already en route. Within a decade, humanity will have established permanent settlements in other galaxies. Within a century, we will have spread further than your civilization has managed in 10 million years. That is impossible, said the Veluxi scientific attach, but her voice held no conviction. Intergalactic travel requires more energy than any civilization can generate. More energy than your civilization can generate, Larva corrected gently. The Prometheus array changed our capabilities significantly. We have solved problems your scientists do not yet know exist. Ambassador Zithkal stood abruptly. This is a trick, a bluff. You cannot simply leave the galaxy. No one can. And yet, we are. Larva looked directly at him. I understand your skepticism, Ambassador. For 40 years, you believed humanity was inferior, chaotic, uncivilized. It must be difficult to accept that you were wrong about everything. Her voice carried no mockery, only statement of fact. But consider this. 5 years ago, you believed we would collapse without Union support. Instead, we built something that makes your greatest achievements look like children's toys. Perhaps it is time to stop assuming you understand what humans are capable of. Harmonious Chord stepped forward. Larva, wait. You said humanity is leaving, but surely not all of you. There must be some who want to stay. Some who have built lives here, friendships, connections. Lara's expression softened for the first time. There are some. A few hundred individuals who have chosen to remain in Union space. They are welcome to do so. But the vast majority of humanity has already made their choice. We are going somewhere new. Somewhere we can grow without limits. Somewhere we do not have to hide what we are. And what about us? Harmonious Chord asked. What happens to the galaxy you leave behind? That depends on you. Laura's image shifted, revealing data streams and technical specifications. We are transmitting a gift to the Veluxi home world. Technologies that will take your scientists centuries to fully understand, but which will improve millions of lives in the meantime. Medical advances, energy systems, agricultural techniques. Consider it a thank you for the kindness you showed us when others did not. The chamber erupted in protest. Why the Veluxi? Why not share with everyone? Was this a trick? A trap? Larva waited for the noise to die down. The rest of you will receive nothing. Not because we want revenge, but because we do not trust you to use advanced technology responsibly. The species who pushed for our exile did so out of fear and prejudice. We will not give such species the tools to spread that fear further. This is unfair. Zithkal shouted. Is it? Lara raised an eyebrow. You banned an entire species because we made you uncomfortable. You condemned 8 billion people to what you believed would be poverty and death. And now you complain that we are not sharing our gifts equally? She shook her head. We owe you nothing, Ambassador. We are leaving in peace. That should be enough. The transmission began to fade. This will be our last communication with the Galactic Union. Humanity wishes you well. We hope that someday your civilization will grow beyond its fears and limitations. Perhaps then, in some distant future, we will meet again as equals. The screens went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, Harmonious Chord began to laugh. It was a soft, musical sound that held no mockery, only wonder. What is amusing? Vethkai demanded. Everything, she replied. We thought we were teaching them. We thought we were guiding a primitive species toward enlightenment. We believed ourselves to be their superiors in every way. Her fronds rippled with emotion. And all along, they were the ones studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for the day when they would surpass us completely. She looked around the chamber at the frightened, confused faces of 12,000 species. Humanity played the longest game in galactic history. And they won. The council session dissolved into chaos. But in the corner of the chamber, Harmonious Chord sat quietly, thinking about her human friends and the gift they had sent to her people. Perhaps, she thought, this was not the end of the story. Perhaps it was only the beginning.